Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to another video in the Getting into MBA College video series. Today we will talk about professionals who have say around 5 to 10 to 15 years of work experience and who are then looking to do an MBA. That means we'll be talking about the executive MBA as it is called. And for that, we have an expert today. We have Akhilesh Sharma, who did his PGPX from IIM Ahmedabad, that is an executive MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, in the 2019 to 2020 batch. So, over to you, Akhilesh, for a more detailed introduction, and thank you so much for doing this for us.
Sure. Thank you so much, Avi, for this. I'm really excited to share my experience. And yes, you kind of reminded me of the time that we met. And I think now we can safely say that it was definitely a different era that we met because, now the experience is very different from the current batches, I'm sure, with the PGP and the PGPX. So yeah, I think the classroom experience that we had, I think that kind of got us to know each other also in a different capacity. So yes,
Yeah.
I'm here, and thank you for the invitation. And yeah, looking forward to a good conversation with you.
Awesome. So Akhilesh, for the starting, let's just talk about what kind of experience you had pre MBA. Let's just kind of share your own profile with the viewers over here.
Sure. So Chavi, I was already a postgraduate in masters, and I had a masters in medical biotechnology from Manipal University, and this was way back in 2009. I graduated, and
Okay.
2007, of course, I had my undergraduate degree also done, and then I was working for Biocon as a
Mm-hmm.
as a scientist, and then I was a senior scientist. At some point, I was in the R&D division, where I was
Uh-huh.
working on drug development for some of the drugs which are in the market today. So that obviously makes me feel proud.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and at the same time, I think after that I moved to Dr. Reddy's in Hyderabad, which happens to be my hometown as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a stint in quality control there for drug
Okay.
batch releases for different countries. And then I moved to consulting for some
Yeah.
time. I used to work for a boutique consulting firm. This was again in the pharma space, that I was working pharma, biopharma space. And
Mm-hmm.
overall, if you look at it, I had like a good, decent 10 years, plus experience before I joined the MBA course. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of motivations were there to get this MBA, and it was more about the degree initially than the college,
Mm-hmm.
because you
Mm-hmm.
kind of identify a need in your current job, or maybe your aspirational needs where you want to fit in probably at a later
Mm-hmm.
point in your career. So it's always something that you kind of back calculate, or in this case forecast what you will need in the future. So that's where
Okay.
I thought about MBA sometime
Mm-hmm.
during my consulting days, and not necessarily in my R&D days,
Yeah.
because there were a lot of people who were pursuing PhD, which is a norm to get, after your master's in medical biotechnology, or such medical paramedical courses. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's pretty much my experience about 10 plus before I came to Ahmedabad.
As you mentioned, there could be some aspirational triggers. There could be some things that you want to reach, some career points where you want to reach when you think about an MBA, right? So, what were these things? Is it just a feeling that everyone in your firm has an MBA degree, or is it just a feeling that some positions definitely require an MBA? Or, like, what was the reason for you
So,
majorly?
so to be very honest, Chavi, I feel I'm a person who does not discount formal education at any point.
Hmm.
That I think was the biggest motivational factor, and I think that's also got to do with my background of science. Somehow we as scientists, we are so used to reading journals, we are so used
Yeah.
to reading published material, that we feel that there is a structure. Even though there's a lot of chaos, there is a structure, and that
Hmm.
that for me is the seed for why, even if I had made the change, in my career before an MBA into proper out and out strategy consulting, even though it was in a
Yeah.
boutique consulting firm. But I used to work with a lot of big clients, at least in the top 15 pharma companies that you can name. Probably I've worked in some capacity or the other,
Wow.
even before
Hmm.
MBA. So, but if you
Right.
look at it, I still felt always that not necessarily in my firm everyone had an MBA, and that kind of
Mhm.
pushed me. But it was more about, I think, more of my personal need for a formal education, because I felt
Right.
if you if I had to, let's say, and you have been in consulting for some time, so you're aware
Yeah.
that you can find, case structures and formats, easily available on Google, but
Yeah.
that'll still take some time. What if you knew this already? It could save my time and make me more efficient for my work.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought that maybe it was not because an external pressure, but more about an internal need to be more efficient, and at the
Right.
same time at the same time matching up to something. It definitely was also a point to open up a few more doors, in different areas. I wouldn't deny that. So yes, so I think
Definitely.
it was a mixture of a few things: internal need, uh, aspirations of opening a few more future, doors, be more, quote unquote sellable,
Yeah.
and it just becomes easy to be noticed, and there's no denying that's happening quite a bit now. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Yes, I think almost all of us have this requirement that we should know the business holistically. We should know what is going on in the different sectors, and that does not come from one unpaid. So yeah, that's nice, Akhilesh. So then next, I would like to know what was the kind of admission process that you had. What are the parameters that matter? Because in the 2-year MBA, there's so much you can say weightage on your past academics and all of that, that it really deters a lot of people who do not have that great academics. So
Correct.
what are the
Yeah.
parameters and what is the admission process like?
Yeah. So even though, Chavi, you would also agree, admissions process is always a black box. We would not know exactly what
Yeah.
happens, in that room. We
Yeah.
can always conjecture about what could be one of the potential things that, could matter, someone getting a yes or no. But if you ask
Yeah.
my perspective, I think, especially for the PGPX course, I think it's more about the quality of experiences that you bring in, because
Mhm.
more than academics, because if you look at my past academics, I think, yes, I was always a very good student, but then you're talking about at least 11 to 12 years back now, when
Yeah.
I was in school, uh, you know,
Yeah.
uh, graduation. So I don't think so that is something that is of a lot of value today for the IIM Ahmedabad PGPX. How I
Yeah.
used to be as a student in like last decade, I don't think so anyone is interested. But what have I actually
Mhm.
done in my career? Have I
Yeah.
taken some kind of, uh, any leadership stance? It could be not necessarily you have to be a manager to be a leader, but
Mhm.
even in your personal lives, like, we discussed about me moving my career trajectory in between, from a
Yeah.
hardcore or R&D person who's actually cloning cells at some point, moving to
Yeah.
consulting, where you're talking to business, to, let's say, a Pfizer or someone in the New York office. I think it just becomes very important that you talk more about your experiences, and how that
Yeah.
experience is going to, probably, as an admissions person, someone would say how that experience is going to benefit other members in the class. Is
Right.
that going to help the cohort at large? I think that
Mhm.
is the rationale. And again, leadership, as random as it sounds, but it is absolutely subjective to anyone, right? And leadership
Yeah.
could mean something to you and something to me. If
Mhm.
someone can demonstrate that in the application, I don't think so there's any other parameter that's even more important. Of course, you have your quantitative skills and other things that you need to be at a certain level. I won't discount that
Yeah.
at all. You need a
Mhm.
GMAT or a GRE score. I
Yeah.
had a GRE score myself,
Okay.
and I think it was a pretty decent score. I had given my GRE back in 2015, which I used
Okay.
the score for 2019 admission.
Wow.
And it's an interesting story actually why I wrote that GRE, because it was not for an MBA program.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say is that, while we all can probably, stitch up our own stories, but sometimes you
Mhm.
never know exactly what is leading to what. But if
Right.
you make a synthesis of what has happened in the past, I think your experiences, a decent, good enough GRE, GMAT score, whatever, and I'm sure a few good recommendations from your previous employers, I think that makes the cut. And
Got
if
it.
you particularly ask me the process, I think the batch in which I had applied, we had And for this, I would like to thank Ahmedabad, because it was the most easiest MBA application that you could ever fill in. Because I had also
Okay.
filled in for some other good schools as well, which are equally good schools, but they were slightly more taxing in terms of application. You need to write your essays and everything, which does not happen in Ahmedabad PGPX. You need to write
Okay.
the essays or SOPs, some people would call it that ways, only after you clear the first round. So
Okay.
which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
If you don't clear the first round, then you don't put your effort into writing of the
Right.
essays.
Yeah.
The only thing is you just get like about 10 to 15 days to write up those SOP for the second round. And the first round is very basic. Your GMAT GRE scores, your profile, work experience, almost like a curriculum vitae, or a resume, a complete resume,
Okay.
and that's about it.
Yeah.
The second one is where you write your essays, your motivations for the program, and your career aspirations, maybe, if
Yeah.
that's what is asked. And then that's what is asked during the interview process. Some of the common professors that interviewed me as
Yeah.
well. We
Uh-huh.
just spoke about it before the interview, before today.
Yeah.
And yeah, so those are very the interview process, I would say, is, I think it's very similar to what happens at the PGP. That's what I've heard. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's more about an extempore topic that you're given that you need to speak about. I don't know. Does that happen with PGP as well?
No, not in IIMs. I think it happens in FMS
Okay.
entrance. That is where it
Okay.
happens. Yeah.
So we had an extempore topic. It was almost like a,
Okay.
a a bowl of topics that you randomly pick one, and then
Yeah.
there's something written in that, and then that's the
Okay.
icebreaker with the interviewer. And I think
Okay.
it's more for them to grill us further in the interview. But I would say
Yeah.
that it's for me it was easy, because you're generally conversational, and I think that somehow consulting gets you to do that.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and if you're conversational, I don't think so it's a very big problem. But otherwise, that
Mhm.
could be a deterrent for a few people, because
Yes.
it kind of breaks your confidence or builds your confidence in the first few minutes.
Right.
And then they kind of cross question you. No, I don't think so, that's what we would
Yeah.
believe. And those kind of
Yeah.
things. And they sometimes just do it on purpose, because they want to make sure that you are a good fit in the class. You won't
Exactly.
unnecessarily argue during cases,
Yeah.
the case structure, right? so
Yeah.
so so I think, yeah. And then you get to know your decision in about 15 to 20 odd days post your interview. And that's how
Got
it
it.
happens. Yeah, this is the whole process. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think then, so like the only thing that probably differentiates Ahmedabad is that you don't have to write those essays and SOPs upfront, which most of the
Upfront.
other
Yeah.
colleges require
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
And it's a significant effort, Chavi, because
Yeah.
you will have to like really think about it, and put in a lot of time. And most of the people are coming with some experience. I was coming from a
Yeah.
consulting, then at least consulting background, and it was
Yeah.
so difficult to take out time to finish those
I
essays
know. Yeah.
with your
Yeah.
clients
Yeah.
unrealistic demands at times.
Yeah.
And it's already a 12 to 14-hour day, literally. And then you
Yeah.
ask for another 2-3 hours of or maybe you take out times on weekend or whatever. But then, yeah,
Right.
so it kind of saves you that hassle. At least Ahmedabad is great in that. Yeah. I
Right.
hope they keep that every year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they don't change it very
And they don't
much.
change it. Yeah.
So yeah, so that is great. We have like potentially a few things, that is your GMAT GRE score, essays that need to be written, and an interview in general. You can say a
Yeah.
combination of colleges. Awesome. So once you were in the program, Akhilesh, what was the variety? What was the diversity in your own batch? Like I know that people become eligible for executive MBA when they have 5 years of experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you see people from 5 years to what, 15, 20 years experience,
Yeah.
or what was like the
Sure. Yeah.
diversity?
I don't remember the exact number, Chavi, but then what I can
Hmm.
surely say in my batch, I think 5 years for sure, a minimum
Yeah.
experience that we had. And then I think, if I'm not wrong, I think at least 15 or maybe 17 years of experience people were
Okay.
there. Maybe 15
Yeah.
could be a good number, I think, if not 17. 15 for sure. So overall, I feel, that range of, experience of people, it is it is very helpful to groom you as a person, I think. because you
Yeah.
not only get a very, and everyone is sitting side by side in the class, like literally you're randomly juggled into classes
Yeah.
and put into place, and then you kind of, you tend to, even if you don't want to, at times you tend to learn from everyone, and let's be honest about it. you
Yeah.
you kind of passively learn, from people with their
Yeah.
experiences. Probably some are very good communicators, some are very good at quantitative skills, some are exceptionally good at organizing things, some are very good at delivering projects. I think
Right.
there is a lot of things apart from hardcore academics that you could also learn with such kind of experiences,
Yeah.
with people around, because they all come with their own own set of um, own set of skills in the past that they would have learned passively or actively in their previous life. So
Yeah. Yeah. And because they also come from very different sectors, you
backgrounds,
can say as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So because we had people from literally mining, or
Hmm.
I was from a biopharma background,
Yeah.
and then you have people from finance background, and then you have people who have been CAs, that's like a lot of
Yeah.
people that are very good at quantitative things. And then you also have people, of course it's India, so there's a majority of people from IT background. You
Yeah.
can't really deny that.
Yeah.
But then I think it's a very hard skill that people have with the IT background, and at least people like me who did not really
Hmm.
have an IT or engineering background, it becomes
Yeah.
even more important to learn from them,
Yeah.
certain things. So I think, yeah, so you kind of have right from project managers or program managers in the past, product managers who are very good at deconstructing a certain problem and probably
Hmm.
addressing it. I think those are the different things that you definitely see.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, based on like this huge variety of experiences, backgrounds, and all, what are the kind of companies that come for placements then? Is it, and they might also bring a variety of roles based on what
Sure.
candidate they're looking at, right? So,
Sure. So,
how did the placements
mm,
go about totally?
so
Yeah.
see, this is something that we, as an experienced professional, if that is how you put us into
Hmm.
one bucket. What we understand is that it becomes, you cannot have, you obviously have a few companies who always come, you know who always
Yeah.
come for the course. But and there are always some new companies, which happens in every, literally every course. But if you look at the percentage of people who come new to this
Hmm.
course, particularly PGPX, I feel that they are more variable. And the reason why they are
Okay.
variable is because they want to, because it totally depends on the batch composition. Yeah.
Yeah.
A company, it would not make any financial sense for a company to just come for one person to be recruited. They would obviously look at the
Correct.
profile of people, and they would say that,
Hmm.
okay, from this particular batch, let's say 2019 20, we are
Hmm.
aiming to look at 17 to 18 odd people, let's say. I'm
Right.
just throwing
Yeah.
a number. And that is going to and they fit a certain criteria, either on the skills or past experience or company experiences that they've had, some brand names and other things, and this is the mixture.
Yeah.
Now, the same company may not feel the same need the following year. It could change, because the batch composition may change a little bit. And
Yeah.
it's not very easy to always have standard block companies who will just come recruit. Okay, you are from an MBA and you're from Ahmedabad, so we are going to take a truckload of people in certain spaces. Because even if they want to, probably we'll say no, because we are coming
Yeah.
with some experience, so we'll be like, no, but I don't want, even though you might be a great company, but it does not fit my aspirations. So I think
Right.
that's where I think it is a little different.
Hmm.
And I also feel that empowers us as candidates to exactly need and do what we want. And that's where
Right.
the matching could truly happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So for context, Seven, I'm Ahmedabad generally creates a profile for every batch.
Yeah.
So that's like a batch
Yeah.
profile booklet, which
Correct.
every single person
Sure.
has their own two-liner of what it is that they bring, where do
Exactly.
they come from,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
So that's
So
there
Akhilesh, in
definitely.
this, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Sorry,
in
go ahead.
this regard, only want to ask that how many people, for example, were able to say switch sectors, right? So even if the companies that come kind of base it on the past background that you have had, not necessarily academic work experience and academic. How many people were essentially able to switch sectors, go to a new sector if they wanted to? Someone who wanted to
Mm,
maybe move from finance to maybe an IT related product management, right?
sure,
So
sure.
how possible is it?
See again, if you have to look at the environment, right, Chavi? Because here, if you look at it, if someone wants to switch to an IT company, it's definitely
Hmm.
easier. Even if someone has
Okay.
a previously some other domain experience, they don't
Hmm.
necessarily have IT experience, but they have. And case in point, me, I don't really have like a strong IT experience, but I'm working today in an IT company
Right.
as a subject matter expert on certain portfolio products that they have
Yeah.
in the future. So it's easy to switch to an IT company, but if you want to switch your career altogether to a different domain altogether, different domain. Let's say someone wants to get into uh, who's already there in, let's say, a finance background but wants to get into fashion and apparel industry.
Yeah.
Probably it could be slightly difficult, and it could be easy, but then you kind of tend you need to, as a candidate, you need to be very sure that you may need to probably uh, put your expectations to your salary a little more reasonable, because
Yeah.
you're coming with a significant experience in a particular field, for which the companies are
Yeah.
ready to compensate. But what if you don't have that experience at all? So then you almost kind of start from
Yeah.
scratch. So
Right.
that is something, as long as people understand that, I think everyone can make changes. Making change is not difficult for the company, but making change is difficult for the candidate, because you need to
Yeah.
really be sure about, is this something that you really want to do? Are you ready to compensate your location? Are you ready to compensate your money? Are you ready to compensate the time and effort? And are you really seeing this long term for you to happen? Is
Yeah.
that going to fit
Yeah.
in your future plan? I know all of these future planning and everything, forecasting, all of these are very subjective and random. But I also believe that this it is still an important exercise that people need to do before they think about any executive 1 year programs. I would say full time
Right.
ones at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just continuing on that, how do you really fixate that? Okay, this could be my career, right? Because it could potentially, for some people, be the last time when they can switch fields, switch
Yeah.
sectors. How do you do that? Do you do some preparation beforehand? Do you do some research beforehand? How do you
Yeah.
figure that out?
So I think, Shavi, now is a good time when I actually tell you that how did I switch my career in the past,
Yeah.
because because that is still applicable. Even if you're with your
Right.
MBA, even if you get it from
Yeah.
any other university which is as good as Ahmedabad, you will still require
Yeah.
the same skills. You obviously need to know exactly what job you're applying for, and
Hmm.
what does that require on a day-to-day basis. I think, and
Yeah.
it's not for the employer, but it is more for you, so that you know
Right.
exactly what to expect out of that job. Once you're convinced
Hmm.
with your own case of what am I exactly going to do from 8 o'clock in the morning to, let's say, 5 o'clock in the evening, if it's consulting 8 to 10 in the night, whatever, you
Yeah.
just need to literally know, am I going to do secondary research? Am I going to talk to people? Am I just going to talk to clients? Is that what my daily
Yeah.
task going to be? Because all of
Right.
those quantitative analytical skills, they come much later and they come very sporadically. They don't necessarily come to you daily with some analytical problem most of the time. so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I would say that having a very clear view of what are you going to do in that job, that's the first step. Second step, what you need
Right.
to do is that if you want to see how, again, very random question, I feel at times, then when universities or colleges ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I think even though we could mock that question today, saying that how does anyone really know where do you see yourself 5 years, 10 years down the lane, but I still think it's a good exercise to have. Um, and I feel that
Yeah.
if we are able to answer that in some shape and form, that okay, I want to be in a pharma sector and I want to know all the different functions of that industry at some point in my career, so that I can call myself a 360-degree pharma person. And I think that's
Yeah.
branding 101, right? As in, that's your first thing that you do. You need to brand yourself in a certain way. So I think it's a
Right.
very good exercise to do that, and that's what I think I did when I was in R&D. And my manager knows this for a fact, my first manager, that I was
Yeah.
very curious about knowing everything from what happens in a biotech industry. I I like research. and I still love research. I can still go and clone cells. I'm still very adept at it. But then if you ask me today that, can you do you know the quality systems, do you know how the US FDA approves a drug, then probably yes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my Dr. Reddy's experience kind of taught me that. Then if you ask me that,
Yeah.
how can you market the drug, will that be a commercially viable product, maybe a lot of my consulting experiences have taught me that now. So what I did was that every time you obviously need to network to find the right opportunities, but beyond networking you also need to work on yourself, because alone networking won't help. You need to brand
Yeah.
yourself. It's okay. The only trade-off that you make here is that if I brand myself as a pharma person or a biopharma person who knows 360 degrees about what happens in the pharma, and probably this is the reason I chose this job also, because I'm still a biopharma
Yeah.
person in an IT space where I'm doing some
Yeah.
I'm managing certain products on artificial intelligence for drug discovery. I think it's all kind of coming in one circle, overall. So I think
Right.
as long as you have that clarity, it helps you, and your
Mm-hmm.
motivation to do that. So I think that's when you can. That's my second step. You really need to have that urge to know all aspects of a different industry, and that's when you'll
Right.
know whether you really like it or not.
Makes sense. I think that is one thing definitely that in general people should know whenever they are switching fields. And guys, for that I have created a few videos on career guidance on what really happens in consulting, in finance, in product management, and marketing. So in case you want to look at any of these, it would give you a good way of what happens in these jobs, what does a day look like, and what does it take to get in there. Yeah. So sorry again for that little, detour. But okay, that was very helpful. I think that will just help people in also identifying what are the careers that they really want, what could they eventually get into. Apart from say placements, I know that MBAs are obviously positively or negatively popular for giving good placements, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But what else do you think you learned over there? You obviously mentioned the soft skills, right? That the other people, your colleagues, your batchmates give to you as well. So what are the different things you could potentially say that you learned um,
Yeah.
you know
So
through
I think,
through your
yeah, so I think, at least specifically from Ahmedabad, I think case method makes all the more sense now,
yeah.
after a certain, experience that you have, because you don't just rely on, said frameworks, but you also rely on the experiences of people which the batch is already coming with, right? I
Hmm.
think, yes, you passively learn from people, but I also think that one of the reasons why I had chosen Ahmedabad, and I can happily say that I had to make a choice and I chose Ahmedabad, was that
Yeah.
uh, really the pedagogy is really something that teachers and professors, they all alike, they are wonderful. And I also think that you start valuing the human resource part of the course more, you know I
Hmm.
think that is something. If And I'm really not talking about you or anyone in general, but if you ask me
Hmm.
10 years back, maybe I would not have valued it that much, but maybe today I do,
Yeah.
because on a day-to-day basis actually I'm managing uh, people and their emotions much more than I'm doing my actual job. So
Yeah.
so I think that is one thing that there are a few courses in Ahmedabad which I particularly liked, and I think that that was my biggest take on this. I keep telling everyone that I meet, that let's say that particular course, it's called Potential to Performance. I
Yeah.
just cannot forget that learnings of that course. It's just something that you kind of keep reminding it to yourself that this is who you are.
Right.
So I think it's also about discovering yourself. When you are with a team of 140 people, that's what a batch size is, at least was. And I'm
Hmm.
sure this year also it's like that. I've just spoken to a few professors. So I feel that you kind of identify yourself even better, in that
Yeah.
crowd. So where are you exactly? Like, you kind of ask those questions to you. So okay,
Yeah.
so there are 139 people equally exceptional. So maybe are you lost in the crowd, or are you really someone who can differentiate yourself? And I think that speaks out even when you are sitting in your interviews. That speaks out
Hmm.
even when you're drafting your essays or resumes.
Right.
for the application, and that's what makes you you. So I think these are some things that I have to say that unless, even if the thought of preparing for the admissions, to actually sitting in classes, to placements, to the entire whole process of tea nights and other things that we all had together
Yeah.
for that matter.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of helps you understand who you are and what do you exactly
Yeah.
like. And I think if a school can give you that platform, which Ahmedabad does, be it PGP or PGPX, I think that's
Yeah.
great.
Possible. Yeah. Is it also possible that you do not do an MBA and still reach the same place somehow? Yeah. Just want to know
See,
that.
if you, again, it's very perspective driven, but my perspective is having an MBA, especially from premium colleges, and there are a few in the country, it definitely contracts that, the overall timeline. It kind of, gets you where you want to be, probably
Yeah.
maybe 3 years earlier, that you possibly would have gone through without the MBA. I
Yeah.
particularly do not feel that any course is a must for you to reach somewhere. I think it's you who is a must to reach anywhere, but not your degrees. Your degrees don't speak. But I still, even though I'm saying that, I still acknowledge this, that having an Ahmedabad or an equivalent, brand to your resume, it is definitely something that kind of, totally shrinks that process. People, it possibly could have, shortened a timeline for a lot of people who were our predecessors, in the past. And I'm very sure that that may happen with us, hopefully, and looking forward to it. But if you don't get an MBA, I still feel a master's is something that I think, just because of the environment that we are in, that everyone is so competitive in India in general. And even if you look at your consulting companies that you have worked with in the past, or I have worked in, somehow education is somehow valued more than, just you being you. It
Right.
definitely opens up the doors. So I think that masters in anything is something that could help, people to do multiple things. But I also would say that uh, there are a lot of masters in like supply chain and other management courses, and that's when I was also considering at some point, apart from the PhD, that maybe why come, because, and this was coming basically because I was working with a pharma client on optimizing their supply chain processes, and it was just a lengthy engagement. And that's when I realized that maybe I don't need an MBA. Maybe what if I do this? I kind of realized value in some other courses also, that maybe this is like a good money place where a pharma company actually spends a lot of money on. So maybe if I get a right education, it'll open up doors. So I all in all, I definitely would like to say that having a great education with a master's degree definitely helps, be it an MBA, be it professional certifications like a CA or anything else. I think all of them, everyone has an equal potential to reach, but having an MBA, a very general degree, it just helps you understand, switch, your skills slightly more easier than, any other. Maybe if I would have done the master's in supply chain, it would not have been probably that easy to get into
Right.
something what I'm doing today, which is more on strategy for certain portfolio products. I'm not sure if that would have happened. And maybe when I had to employ someone, maybe I won't be that sure as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally agreed. I think yes. So MBA is more than anything else, it just opens up a lot of opportunities, at least in India, where
Absolutely.
education
Yeah.
really, really matters in almost everything that yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yes.
I
I
I
think
yeah.
that was mostly it from me, Akhilesh. Um,
Sure.
Yes, that was a super, super insightful session. Thanks a lot for answering all of my queries. A lot of people have been just wondering that, if they're not good enough, exactly good enough in terms of the academic scores for a 2-year MBA, how can they do an executive MBA in future? What are the things that are required? And as you mentioned, an MBA degree is really valuable in India. So guys, in
Yeah.
general, I hope that this has really helped you. Akhilesh has kind of cleared all the different doubts of, what are the kinds of people who can get into executive MBA, what are the different admission processes, and what can you expect out of it as well. So just let us know if this video was helpful. In case you have any more questions, you can mention in comments, and I will again, request Akhilesh to answer those questions
Sure.
on YouTube if possible.
Absolutely. Anytime, Chavi, you can contact me for this, and I'm
Definitely.
more than happy to help people. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you so much for today. It was really great talking to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much, Chavi, for inviting me to the channel. Thank you.
Okay, guys, thanks a lot. I'll see you again Saturday, 7 p.m. on the live Q&A session.